my my life up to this point and how that has contributed to becoming an artist. Um, and with that being said, I kind of want to share a quote with you guys. Um, so this quote, I found it when I was a teenager by Amy Lowell, and it says that art is the desire of a man to express himself, to record his reactions of his personality to the world he lives in. And that really just stuck with me because my environment kind of influenced me. And the environment that I grew up in was South Central Los Angeles. And yeah, I was born and raised in South Central to two hardworking parents. They always try to provide the best they could for my sister and I. And even though I was born in LA, my life wasn't consistent of this. So for some reason, every time it comes up in conversation that I was born in LA, everybody automatically asks, like, have you been to Rodeo Drive or Beverly Hills? And what is it like? And, I understand these are real places. And yes, I've been there. But when I was growing up in LA, there was this kind of saying or a hidden rule that to stay in your hood, basically. They always used to say, um, you kind of have to stay in your part of LA. You don't belong here, stuff like that. Which
Sorry, Renzo, I muted you.
Okay, my presentation is over.
Sorry, no, it's just I don't want to mute everyone because then I end up muting Kyung and Renzo. But yeah, if you guys would mute yourself, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So where was I? So yeah, I didn't grow up with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay in my hood was kind of the thing that kind of went around when I was growing up there. My life consisted of this. So I grew up walking through sketchy streets. I was that kid always chasing after the elote guy, trying to hunt him down. Hold up, stop! I want an elote, kind of thing. And that was my reality. I sat in hours and hours of traffic, which I'm sure still exists today in LA. That was my norm. And like many children in LA, I was sheltered by my parents. You had I had a household to come to that was safe, and I could be myself at. But I quickly learned that that household, I couldn't take that safety with me when I stepped outside those walls. So I started to understand what it was to live in LA from a very young age. Um, an interesting thing was that my dad is specifically always took me to the park on Sundays. And I grew up watching him play soccer as a kid. So I had a huge love for soccer. And I have an image here of the park we kind of went to. Um, this park I spent years going to every Sunday until the sun went down. And, at the age of 8, things started to kind of take a turn. Um, when I went to this park, there was no gates. It was all open. It's like some medical center down in South Central, but we use it as a park. And yeah, like I said, one day and one Sunday, I was just hanging out with my family, and I saw my cousin Victor, who was a teenager at the time, coming down the street, running towards us. And I wasn't too sure what was going on at the time. I just saw him panicking and running towards me out of breath. And that's when I saw about 10 gang members behind him. And he thought it was a good idea to run to us for safety. That was his first instinct, go to the park because everybody's there. In a matter of seconds, a brawl kind of started out. Apparently, my cousin was being chased by them, and out of nowhere, dirt started kicking up in the amber lights. So it's really hard to see what was going on. But my first instinct was to grab my younger cousins and just shove them into my dad's truck, until they started screaming at me that they forgot their awesome Razor scooters on the ground. So here I go, jumping out of the truck, going to the Razor scooters, throwing one in the back of the truck, and lock the door, right? And I thought, what do I do? What's going on? And I could see my dad running towards me. And I was like, okay, we're getting out of here. I locked the doors, and I assume he's going to get in to drive away. But he goes into the back of this truck and he pulls out a car jack. And this is like a large car jack. It weighs a ton. It's just really heavy. I'm sure you guys are familiar with them. He grabs it and runs back into the brawl and swings it at a few guys as he goes in. Um, I wasn't too sure what was going on, but then I saw that he had gone back for my uncle, who was pinned on the ground by two guys. And my uncle later claimed that he had it under control, that it was cake. He didn't need any help. But from my point of view, it was very different. So, but yeah, my dad grabbed us all, shoved us in the truck, and we drove a block away to where my aunt lived in this apartment. So we all kind of got there. My dad parked right here with his blue little Chevy he's at, and we just kind of tried to regroup and figure out what was going on. As we were all just standing there, kind of just trying to wrap our minds around what just happened, a car came speeding down the street, and it started to lose control and hit the curb, and I saw somebody fall out. It turns out that that person was my cousin Freddie, and Freddie had gone the wrong way and tried to make a U-turn to come back towards us. As he came back, his car was shot at, and the bullets scraped his head, thankfully. The glass on his car ricocheted, and it luckily didn't go into his skull, didn't penetrate at all. But you know, my dad still rushed over and kind of grabbed his shirt and wrapped it around his head, and you know, was screaming for an ambulance. And it was the first time I really heard my dad scream for something, right? And I was just 8 years old. I didn't know what was going on. But luckily my cousin was okay, and I kind of just stood there. And as a kid, you don't really know what to do, but I knew that I had to just stand there and wait. So in this scene, like, I would be right here in the truck, and then my cousin was right here where that oil spot is, ironically. So that's exactly where he was laying down, and I was just kind of confused as to what was going on. At that moment, I kind of realized that I needed to get out of LA. Even though I was so young, I kind of knew this was not really a good environment to stay in. And according to my dad, in order to achieve that, I needed to go to school and get an education, which is what most parents with that live in LA tell their kids. To this day, I kind of secretly believe that my parents always wanted me to be an engineer, mainly because my godfather in Mexico City was an engineer. So they saw his success and thought, hey, Renzo could follow in his footsteps, kind of thing. But one day I was just hanging out with my mom, and she kind of asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And as a kid, I knew that I want to be an engineer just because my dad wanted that. But I responded that I wanted to be a gardener. And to my defense, the word jardinero, which is Spanish for gardener, and ingeniero, which is Spanish for engineer, sound very similar. So I got them confused, and before I could react, my mom yelled at me and said, "You don't need to go to school for that. You could start when you get home." And so let's just say that I never wanted to be a gardener anymore, and I didn't want to be an engineer. Just said that because my dad brought it up. But at the age of 10 is when I really started discovering that I wanted to be an artist. I always had a passion for drawing and painting and coloring and stuff like that. So I thought, yeah, like, I could be an artist. But at that age, I didn't know what it really meant to be an artist. In my mind, this is kind of what I saw. And yeah, I mean, I'm not digging the hat and the striped shirt, but that's what 10-year-old me saw when I said artist. Sorry, my camera turns off for some reason. I don't know why that happened. There you go. So yeah, to this day, my mom kind of explains that she knew I would be something creative in terms of my career. Some examples is, like, she bought me some white shoes when I was a kid, and when I got going home from school, I had decked them out with some custom designs. I had some like racing stripes and flames on the side of them because I thought, well, flames are cool, why not? And then I thought they made me look fast when I ran because I wasn't too fast. But yeah, I got yelled at that day and for my creative potential, but it didn't really stop me. Later on, my mom found the F-bomb written on our laundry door, and I claimed that it wasn't me. I told her, no, it was a previous owners, or it was my dad. But the previous owner lived there 5 years ago. So it wasn't the previous owner. They would have seen it when they bought the house. And my dad doesn't speak English. So my kind of lies just, I was, I was just so confused. I didn't know what I was saying. Um, that day I got a spanking, like I always got a spanking. And it wasn't like physically hard or anything. It was just to learn my lesson, right? But I got sent outside and continued my career as a gardener. This was my parents' punishment all the time: is go outside and cut the grass and pluck the weeds. And eventually I graduated to old school lawnmower. So my parents actually had this lawnmower, and I was pushing this thing around, and I got so many like cuts on my hand from just scraping wood. Um, and it just continued. I kept getting in trouble for painting on our walls, stuff like that. But I started to grow up, and then I just kind of realized, I need to get good grades in school. I need to get that so I could get a good job and leave LA and be successful. And this is what I thought my roadmap looked like. As many of you are looking at this, you're probably saying, yeah, that's not how it is, right? So once time went by, I kind of realized, it's not realistic. That's kind of where my roadmap is right now. And that's my face every time I look at it. So yeah, life got harder. But yeah, it got harder and harder as I just grew up as a teen in that environment. Early on, I kind of began to fall in with the wrong crowd. And I had friends who were in gangs and did drugs and loved to party, but I never really stuck to that lifestyle. I never tried to get involved. And as I grew up, I kind of started to detach myself from people. So I became that kid who's always in his room, locked up, drawing. And that was me. Like all throughout middle school, high school, that's what I did. My life just consisted of going to school, drawing in my homework, getting yelled at for it, getting detention, and then playing varsity soccer and going back home. So, but then in my freshman year, life started getting hard because of some issues that I was having in school and with people outside of school. Um, I remember just walking home one day from soccer practice with my cousins and one of my teammates, and we could hear like loud popping coming down from the street. And automatically my instinct was to grab my two, I say kids, but they were like my kids. I took care of them. My two cousins, and pin them against the car and get down, right? That's my first instinct when I was there. And I could see my friend just standing clueless, like what's going on, as a drive-by shooting was happening. So I had to grab him down and pin him down too. But it just brought back a lot of memories from when I was 8, and being in that situation. It's almost like my instincts just kind of took over. And thankfully we all got home safe that day, but everybody else was just acting normal. Like, why are these lunatics on the ground? Like, everybody was just used to seeing this kind of stuff at that time. But it didn't really stop there for me. Um, During my first 2 years of high school, I lost 3 family members and a friend. One of my uncles, who I was pretty close to, named Lucio, he lost his life in a home invasion. And then my uncle, Genaro, who was in prison, committed suicide. So then my aunt as well got sick when her younger son died, and my friend Ivan passed away from leukemia. And just seeing that in such a short amount of time and getting hit with so many deaths kind of affected me. I felt really bad. I didn't want to spend time with anybody. And then a few years later, I would lose my grandfather as well to gang violence. So I began having suicidal thoughts at a very early age, and I locked myself in my room, and I would sleep like 2 nights out of the week, just sitting there kind of just moping around and drawing, mainly because that's how I coped with the depression. So yeah, drawing was like a coping mechanism early on. And my mom always asked me why I couldn't draw something pretty. Like, why did I have to draw skulls and weird people and just negative stuff. And I kind of told her that I just liked it. I never really told them that I was coping with the loss and with the grief that was going on in my life. It was just a way for me to express myself and to deal with the stress that was going on at the time. I never really spoke about it until I found my faith later on, and my parents learned just a few years ago that I went through all this as a kid. You know, they thought if they could be sheltered at home, everything would be fine. But once I stepped out of those doors, it was just a completely different story. So you could see like my images, and then I had like my self-portrait drawn as a skull. These were very early drawings that I did just to kind of sit there and just think about what was going on in life, because I had never experienced anything like that. But later on in 11th grade, I took my very first art class, mainly because I was forced to. It was the only elective available in my high school. So that's when I met Paul Boteo. And Paul is a East Los Angeles mural artist, and he's an educator at UCLA. And he was really the person who believed in me and told me, hey, you can be an artist as a job. He gave me motivation to go into the arts, and I was a horrible student in high school. If you threw math or history at me, I had no idea what you were talking about. But when it came to his class, I was at the top of the class. I always found comfort talking to him. I felt like I had found what I wanted to do in life. He poured his teachings into me. He told me, you know, he would talk to me about form and color, and he would pull me aside from all the other students and tell me, hey, check this technique out. Like, look how you can do this. And I really appreciated that. And his passion was just contagious. Like, I would see him and just the passion and the joy that he had when he was drawing as a job. And I fell in love with that career. And that's when I did my research, and I thought, okay, I'm going to find a school that has art degrees, and I'm going to go there. My two top schools in my list were Pratt Institute and Art Center. Naturally, right? The big ones. I wanted to be an industrial designer, and for many years that was my goal. But reality kind of kicked in, and I knew that I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't good enough. I didn't have a portfolio, and paying $250,000 for a school seemed kind of insane at the time. It does now too, but yeah, I wasn't willing to spend that much cash on that. So during my senior year, I got accepted to Cal State LA, and I was rejected from Cal State San Bernardino. So those are the only two schools that I applied to. And I was like, I'll take a gamble. And I never applied to art school, but my parents were over the moon when I got accepted to Cal State LA. Like, they were like, wow, you're the first one that's gonna go from our family to college. And I was like, yeah, about that. So I kind of ruined their dreams, to say. And I told them that I was rejecting Cal State LA. I didn't want to go there. And my dad kind of asked me, like, why are you doing this? Like, there's an opportunity here, you should take it. And I made up the excuse that they didn't offer industrial design. That's really what I wanted to focus on. But my focus was to get my family out of LA. I didn't want to stay at Cal State LA because I knew that they wouldn't leave if I stayed there. They would just be stuck there until this day. But I was getting an earful from everyone at that time. Like, my high school counselor, who was in charge of getting us into some sort of college, she told me I would regret my decision. She told me I would end up in LA a loser, that I would never go to college, and that I wasn't good enough to go to another school. And that was kind of like the last straw. Like, everything was kind of piling up on me at the time. And when she said that, I made it a goal to get out of there. And I worked for 6 months. Since I had rejected Cal State LA, I didn't have anywhere to go in the fall. And I applied to Riverside City College. So, wow, I went all the way to Riverside City College. Wow. So, yeah, I went to community college, and it was a gamble. At the time, I wasn't sure what I was doing. I didn't know you know, what school, what am I going to do? Why am I going to Cal State? Why am I going to RCC? But I just wanted to get out of LA, and this seemed like a good choice. Um, Looking back now, I can say that RCC was the best decision I made as a teenager. It wasn't an Ivy League school, but it was a stepping stone. And in Spanish, there's this saying that says, "El burro trabaja doble," which means that the dummy works twice as much. And boy, was I a dummy back then. My years of slacking off in high school caught up with me, and I had to redo all my generals. But in the long run, it was worth it. I learned everything that I was supposed to learn. Everything that I put off, it came back to haunt me, but it was worth it. So while I was at RCC, I had to teach myself digital illustration because I was not aware they had an illustration program there. I learned to use Photoshop when I was 13, but I wasn't using it for drawing. I was just kind of using it as like a graphics thing. And while I was there, I also attended Art Center at Night, which is in Pasadena. It's their, I think it's their East or West campus. I can't remember what it was, but I would go there on Saturdays, and then during the week I would be at RCC. And so my class at Pasadena was 8 hours long on Saturdays, and that in itself is really tiring. But then driving 3 hours to get back home to Paris from Pasadena was, well, it was crazy. I did that for a whole year and a half, hoping that I would become a better artist. And Art Center expected me to have 40 sketches of vehicles and shoes and products a week. So you can imagine juggling, going full time to RCC, going on the weekends to Art Center, teaching myself illustration, and working construction at the same time. I had no life, but you know, I kind of had to push through it, and I just told myself it would be worth it in the end. And construction wasn't an easy job at all either. I saw so many accidents, so seeing all that stuff too kind of motivated me to get out. When I was at Pasadena, I had an instructor who I'll just call Harry for now. But Harry made it clear to me in my second semester that I didn't want to be an industrial designer. I was terrified to go to Art Center. I would walk in every morning just with fear and this pit in my stomach. To show my work was just difficult. And I showed up one Saturday and everybody was kind of hanging out and all the work was being critiqued. And Harry seemed very happy that morning until he got to me. I put my sketches on the wall. There was 40 sketches on the wall that I didn't finish because I had to work late the day before. And Harry came around and he looked at my work and told me it was crap. He told me to quit if I can't handle it. He ripped some of my work off the wall and said that it just was disgusting. And as he moved to another student, I kind of saw my peers laughing and smiling about what had just happened. The class, which I got a scholarship to attend, didn't feel welcoming. It just felt like I was being attacked every day. So I would even eat lunch by myself in my car, kind of locked up in the heat. I kind of was stuck at square one again. Like I was alone, no community, no artist to kind of back me up. But even though I had a horrible time in that class, I tried to find some positives. That's when I really learned to have really thick skin when it came to my artwork. I never got upset if somebody bashed my work. I just, if anybody would talk about it, critique it, I just didn't care anymore. Like it would just be work to me. And I told myself that if I ever considered being a teacher, I would never treat my students that way, because it just took all the motivation I had from Paul and kind of just drained it away. It was really hard, but once I left Art Center, I started going to digital illustration over at RCC, and I had a lot of support there. I had more creativity, more room to work. I didn't have to think about numbers when it came to industrial design. And that's where I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Amy. and my instructors, Robert Jew and Sean McKelvey. So Robert Jew and Sean McKelvey are illustrators for Disney. And they really poured a lot into me, and with my wife's support, it just helped me so much to get through that. They pretty much carried me through RCC and influenced me just to keep going. I got a sense of community that I needed. I also learned to battle my depression. And it's funny because I went from the age of 13 to 22 battling depression without even knowing it. One of my health instructors made us take like a quick test that kind of measured out how depressed a student was. And she handed it back to me and told me to talk to her after class. And I was like, why does she want to talk to me? There's like 100 students in here. Like, why me? But she pulled me aside and told me that I was showing signs of severe depression. And I just thought it was normal. I was like, oh, I'll just brush it off and just keep going. Like, I'm not depressed. That's not a real thing. But when I met my wife, Amy, who is also an artist, I realized that I wasn't okay. I realized that I was going through stuff that I needed to deal with. And life kind of began to change after that. These are my earliest illustrations in RCC. So this is my very first time applying my artwork to digital. And I thought at the time that this was incredible. I was like, wow, like I'm making the best artwork ever. And I think it's mainly because the support I had. They were all pushing me. They're like, yeah, that looks great. You're doing great. Keep going. So having that support group just really helps out people and artists. It just, especially us who we always feel like we're going to be judged on our work, right?
Yeah. Speaking of that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Your stories has a lot of connection. I didn't want to get a word in, but first question was that on that topic, Celeste asked, did you have your parents' support pursuing a career in art? She said, I'm Hispanic and my parents aren't too happy about my choices to do so, which is similar to your story of your upbringing, how you said your parents didn't support you at first.
Yeah, well, I was actually lucky that my parents motivated me. They were okay with me being an artist. Their thing was for me just to go to school. They just wanted me to continue my education. So I was lucky. They were like always pushing me. My dad, he's like, I taught you your first art lesson, right? I'm like, how? He's like, I got a number 2 and I put 2 legs on it and a beak and it turned into a swan. So they were very supportive.
I see. And also, after seeing some of your art, another question that Christopher asked was, would you say that a lot of the environment that you were living in influenced heavily in your art style? Because I see some of your art involves like weaponry and like guns and like these more violent.
Yeah, there's some stuff in there like weaponry, right? Yeah, early on, my environment kind of did influence me. I would draw like really negative stuff, really like mainly like skulls and grim reapers and stuff like that. But the way that my environment influenced my artwork is I started to create like fantasy worlds. I started to think of what would life be away from here where there's so much violence, so I started like creating creatures and just these kind of futuristic soldiers that just kind of made me feel like maybe there's something else, like maybe it's not just all about gang violence and stuff like that.
Right. I see.
Yeah, so then once I finished at RCC, I attended Cal State San Bernardino. So the very school that kind of rejected me out of high school, I ended up at anyways. And when I got there, I was under the impression that they had a digital illustration track, which wasn't the case. They actually just had one class with an instructor who wasn't an illustrator. So I was like, okay. I started to question if I had chosen the right school. And it wasn't due to the school itself or the staff. I had a lot of support from the faculty and from all the teachers there. They gave me a lot of freedom to explore what I wanted to explore. But I began to create worlds digitally. I started coming up with my own kind of environments to just kind of see where I could go after San Bernardino. And let's just say I went to San Bernardino can be a very abstract driven school. They're very about abstract art. So I was the only illustrator in that field. And it just, let's just say I wasn't very popular at that school. Like people would look at my stuff and say, well, you're just pushing pixels around. You're not really creating artwork. Your colors are already chosen for you. You're not doing any mixing. And it's funny because when I was having that conversation with one of the older students there, my professor, Bradley Spence, challenged me to change people's minds. And for my final, I actually went in there and I painted a landscape with oil on canvas. And then I took it into Photoshop to show them what Photoshop can offer, and in terms of speed and in terms of getting an idea out. So I actually recorded the whole process and presented it during class. And my peers kind of seemed like a deer caught in the headlights. They were like, "What is going on? What is this?" And it was just interesting to see them, like they hadn't grasped with the idea of digital artwork. It's almost like they didn't exist in their world. And yeah, I wasn't popular with them, but the graphic design students were always in my studio. I would catch them in my studio looking at my artwork on the wall. So I felt like, okay, that's giving me motivation. I'm doing something's right if these students are up here looking at my work. One student in particular that kind of always cheered me on was, her name is Deborah Cobain, and she's an older lady, a very sweet lady who took interest in my work. And she took so much interest in it that she asked me to teach her digital illustration. And she would always tell me like, I'm so old, but I'm gonna learn this. I'm gonna pick this up. And I'm like, I'll teach you. So I was like, okay, I'll teach you, just because she really wanted to learn this. And that's kind of where I first realized that I wanted to be an instructor, because seeing her face light up when she would discover something new on Photoshop, it just kind of, it made me feel so good to see her smile and be like, wow, like I can't believe you could oil paint on here. I'm like, yeah, and you don't have to get dirty. Look, my hands are clean. And but yeah, she was very supportive, and I think that's really when I started thinking, yeah, like I want to be an instructor.
Oh, okay, that's
yeah.
really cool. Oh, that's perfect, because it leads into Christopher's second question. Because since the environment you grew up in wasn't so supportive, even your peers were judging your work. The question was, how did you handle criticism of the arts, especially in an environment where people aren't too supportive? But it seems like you found something else that had to support you, like around you, or like Deborah, you said.
Yeah, there's always been people around me. There's gonna be more negative people out there than positive. You just got to find those positive people and surround yourself with them. So the same thing that happened at Art Center, you just kind of learn, I got to get out of this environment and find somebody who has the same thinking that I do. So Deborah was definitely one of those people when I was at Cal State San Bernardino. She would always tell me like, you're doing great. You're gonna be famous one day. You're gonna be a teacher, and I'm gonna want to take your class. And I'm like, I don't know about famous, but I'll teach a class. But that was pretty funny. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. All right. Do we have another question?
Oh, sure. Christopher has back-to-back questions here. And that third one would say, would you say that FMA degree is important as an artist? What jobs in the industry would have you been a part of? Have you done any artwork for movies, games, etc.?
Yeah, so for me, an MFA was very important, and I kind of go into this later on, but I wanted to be an instructor. Like that's what I wanted to do. And yes, I would love to work on projects as well. But all my work up to this point has been freelance for like people looking for logos and people looking for an illustration. And I sold a few of my illustrations to this one guy, especially, who's recently just been buying them like crazy. But you know, I haven't worked in the field because I graduated last spring. So right when COVID went down, I graduated and I was like, great, there goes the opportunity. Like, there was a job opportunity that I was applying to and I was looking forward to it. And they're like, due to COVID-19, I'm like, oh, okay, thanks.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, yeah. So then after I kind of left San Bernardino, I was kind of lost for a minute. I had been working construction from the age of 17, and it just took a physical toll on me. My arms started getting very inflamed from my wrist to my shoulder. I couldn't draw. I developed allergies, like really severe allergies, that I had like a cough for 5 years, which I was like, where is this cough coming from? But then I decided to kind of speak to my wife, and I spoke to my dad as well. And I kind of explained to them that I wanted to go back to school. And everybody was super supportive, right, when I said it. They were like, yeah, you should go back. It's only, what, 2-3 years. So I was like, you know, I'll give it a shot. But if you could open up the houses here in Irvine or Yorba Linda, you would see my drawings in those walls. I drew so many things on support beams, so much plywood with a bunch of sketches on it, and I left my signature on a few just to make sure they knew who it was. But yeah, and even though the job paid well, it just wasn't worth it for the physical toll that it was taking on me. And it's just, when I spoke to my parents and I spoke to my wife, with the support they gave me, I decided to apply. And I remember the day that I got my letter back from Fullerton. I was working in Yorba Linda on the top of a 3-story house, and my email starts coming off. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just check what it was. And it was from Fullerton. They said, hey, you're accepted. Like, you're gonna have an interview and all this. I'm like, I'm not going. And I'm like, I'll just stick to what I know and I'll stick to construction. But once I told my wife that, she's like, no, you're going. Like, you have to do this. Like, you can't stay in construction. You hate this. I'm like, I'll think about it. But once she kind of talked me into it, I decided I was going to go, and I interviewed with Cliff and Christian. And going in, I was sweating bullets. I was just like, I'm pretty sure Cliff and Christian saw me kind of like losing so much moisture. It was insane. And I took one look at Cliff and I said, yeah, this isn't happening. Like, this guy has a mean face, like a mean resting face. He doesn't like me. He was looking at a portfolio very quietly, going through it, asking me a question here and there, and I was like, nope, I'm not getting in. But it turns out it was just my mind playing tricks on me. A few weeks later, they contacted me and told me that I had been accepted, and it was a huge sign of relief. I kind of thought, hey, this is probably my way out of construction now. So many years trying to get out of LA and now construction. So I always try to, you know, do something better. And these are some examples of the early work that I did when I was here. This was probably my first semester. I was very lost, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was inspired by Peter Moorbacher, who's a very famous illustrator. That dude is insane. And yeah, my influences go back to like Noah Bradley, Dave Greco, Sparth, also Martin DeChambeau, who's a little bit more low key, but he works at Halo. And you could see that my work just started to develop over time. These were sketches that I did as a demo in my first class that I ever taught here. And I did these in around 30 minutes or so. And my students were like, well, we got to learn this speed. So I started getting very quick at pushing out ideas. These are probably just a collection of things that I do in 2 hours, trying to figure out concepts, photo bashing different things to see how it works out. And it just kept going, and I kept doing these. And Cliff was extremely supportive in doing these. He said, you know, this is what people are looking for. This is what you got to do. And I was like, oh, really? Like, I've seen the illustrators on social media is way better than this. But I just kept going, kept pushing myself, and slowly I started just getting the hang of stuff. I experienced a lot of artist block, but over time, as I develop more techniques, it's been like 3 years since I've had artist block now. So it's really insane to see how just learning new things just keeps you from getting stuck and being there for hours at your computer, not knowing what to do. These are some of the later stuff I did. So these two guys here actually went to full render. So I have like thousands of pages of just this kind of stuff that I never show. But I thought, hey, why not show it here, right? And then that's kind of what I developed my last semester from here on out. This was all going to be in the show, which got canceled thanks to COVID. But you know, I printed them all out. I have them all. And I'm just like looking back now at all the work I was making. I'm like, wow, like in such little time, I've been able to grow a lot. I was only in the grad program for 2 years. I kind of burned through it, and Cliff told me, "You're going too fast." But I was like, "No, I need to get out of here. I need a job." But you know, luckily Fullerton gave me the opportunity to teach right when I started. Actually, like my second semester, they were like, "Yeah, you could teach," and it just kept going from there. But yeah, I dabbled in a lot of stuff, keyframe art, all these poses, except for this little kid. These are all me posing in my apartment, trying to figure out how to put something together so I could sketch over. So this is all, that's my hand right there. See that? Yeah, that's all me right there. And then doing a lot of demos for my students really made me more effective. This one I did at our second week this semester, and it took like 30 minutes. It's up on YouTube. So they were looking at it there, and all this is thanks to, you know, all the people that I've been with so far, and Cliff especially showing me different techniques. Have no trouble at all kind of pushing out work.
Yeah, speaking on that.
Yeah.
No, it's really impressive that most of these takes you 30 minutes. And at least into Christopher's fourth question, is that did you take Jeff Soto, Robert Ju, and Leslie Brown in art for RCC? And also because these, after taking RCC, how has it improved, helped you improve when you got to Fullerton?
Yeah, so I did take classes with Leslie, with Rob, and I knew Jeff, but I didn't take any classes with him. And all those instructors, they were extremely supportive. Robert really pushed me to apply to Art Center. Even though I was having a hard time there, he told me, yo, the illustration track is way different from industrial design. You have to apply. And I was like, Rob, it doesn't cost the same as you when you went to school. We became really good friends that way. And yeah, he was like, oh man, you gotta go, you gotta do this. I'm like, I'll find an alternative. I wasn't really digging going to Art Center, even though it's a great school. I think it just wasn't for me.
Yeah, but you clearly caught some amazing tips and develop your skills from there, clearly. And you also spoke on artist block, and Rihanna asked, "How do you have any tips on how to fight a block?"
Yeah, so mainly what I do is I try to remember things that I've learned throughout the years. So one day I'll be sketching, and if the sketch is just not going anywhere in the first 5 minutes, I trash it and I try something else. I try some abstract painting that I could do some detail stuff on top of. If that doesn't work, I throw that out and go to my sketchbook. So it's just about getting, sometimes you have to step away from the screen or the canvas. You have to explore different things and it'll just come to you. I think if you find something and you're there for 10 minutes, automatically you're going to start creating. It's just, you kind of have to step away from some environment. Maybe you're in your room, maybe go outside and just sketch something from observation.
Right.
So it's just about using different tools.
Right. On that topic too. So what specific things that helped you? Like Brendan Pham asked, what are some things that you learned that helped with creating artwork outside of school? Say, yeah, if you're say at home or anywhere else.
Yeah, for me, things that inspire me, to be honest, is music a lot. I have a piece here actually. So music is a huge thing to me. Like I have to have my headphones on blasting with some music. So this one that's currently in progress that I draw on Twitch is a poster for Florence and the Machine, one of their songs. And I thought, you know, I really like this song. I'm gonna do something about it. And just using Photoshop, honestly, you have drawing, you have painting, you have design, you have all these elements available to you in order to avoid artist block. So often looking at references, you know, I have some Peter Moorbachers in here, some Wiley Beckers, and just random images to kind of piece something together.
That's amazing. Oh.
Yeah, so you guys can see I have a little progress video in here for all of you. But it's pretty clear that coming to Fullerton really changed me a lot. My artwork just began to evolve. I learned more about illustration in 2 years here than I ever did at any other school. My peers and instructors gave me an immense amount of support. They always kept me on my toes. They always make sure that you're creating something. Like even if you're just doodling, you're making some sort of artwork. A lot of people will tell you that you don't need to go to school to be an artist. And in some cases that may be true, but for me, having community, having that friendly competition with my peers, it's really keeps me going. For me, it was Hunter and Jesse Pack when I was here. Like we were the three that were always competing with each other, trying to one up and help each other out. So just having that hunger and that competition really motivates you when you're in school. And not to mention the connections, you know, the reason I'm here today is because of Joanna. And Joanna, I took her class, 2 years ago, and I was just the quiet guy sitting on one corner, hoping not to get picked on or do anything. But you know, the connections you make and the people you meet are the ones that give you your future opportunities. It wasn't for Joanna, for Cliff, for Christian, I wouldn't have the jobs that I have now. We're at OSHA and here at Fullerton. And yeah, I was like you guys sitting in this class, just listening to somebody come in all the time and talk to us and taking notes and thinking, man, I gotta go home, I'm hungry. But you know, you just build a lot of relationships in here. So definitely, I know how hard it is to kind of talk to people. I've always been an introvert. I don't like talking in front of people, and I ended up becoming a teacher, so it makes no sense at all. But yeah, just having people around you it just really helps. And I'm just trying to tell you guys that if I graduated during the COVID pandemic and right after graduation I got a job, there's no reason why you guys can't find work. I know that's something that's always looming in my head. I'm like, can I support my family with this? Am I gonna find work? Why did I pick this job? Why didn't I get a real job? But you know, this is a real job. But yeah, hopefully kind of seeing all this and my struggles kind of makes you realize that it is possible. I've had huge challenges, but we have to welcome those challenges as well as the blessings that come our path. So, and that's pretty much all I got for you guys.
Wow, thank you, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
We were talking about how you sell your artwork, that sometimes you've done like logos for other companies, and so there was one guy who has recently been buying a lot of your artwork. How do you determine the prices to sell your artwork?
For me, I just tried to think of all the materials that I used and the time that I spent on them. So one of the paintings that I sold just a few weeks ago, I sold for about almost $300. And I just thought about how much did I spend on materials, and I made my own frames. I stretched my own canvas, and I got one of my buddies to print it. And then I just thought, okay, to be honest, I spent around $200 in total with materials. So I thought, okay, you know, $300 isn't a bad outcome, but $200 was for a series of 8 posters, and I sold one at $300, so not too bad. But I just tried to think of you know, how much time did I put into this, and how long has it been sitting on that wall? You know, I'm not getting anything out of it by sitting at the wall. Might as well sell it.
I have two questions. First
Mhm.
question, do you like have time to do commissions? And then second question, what soccer team do you support?
My soccer team is hurting right now. Liverpool FC.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I don't know what's happening. Dude, they keep on losing at home.
I don't know what's going on there. They're going through some artist block too. But yeah, the other question was commissions.
Yeah, commissions.
Yeah, I haven't done any commissions, mainly because I haven't really opened up to it. I just recently started sharing my artwork on Twitch. So I don't stream a lot, but I would like to do commissions, but it just kind of depends on what the person's looking for. As you can see, I love landscapes and characters, but I think commissions is something that I would like to tackle probably when I'm not teaching too much, because right now I'm completely booked with 4 classes. I don't even have time to do personal work.
Would anyone else like to ask any other questions?
This isn't a question, more of like, thank you for giving us the talk. This is 4 years of going to school, and I never heard of a talk from a Latino artist. So I just want to say thank you, because this is very inspiring.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's definitely I have never heard of a Latino artist either. Let me see. Okay, I muted somebody.
Mute whoever's out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad I could help. It's just, you know, we have Latino artists kind of have a hard time, especially with our parents, who are always like, no, you got to be a lawyer or you got to be an engineer. But I think my parents kind of saw that it's possible to have a good job just by being an artist. But thankfully, I had the support from them as well.
Oh, and Brendan also has another question. He asked, do you have any advice about how to get your work out there? Like you said, how you had your Twitch.
Yeah, so the biggest thing I've learned is don't just post your stuff on Instagram or post it anywhere. You also have to share other people's work. I have like a few friends who I show their work, and then they have way more followers than I do, and they show my work to them. So it's all about the community, just helping each other out, giving somebody a shout out here and there. I think that's the way that I've kind of grown a lot. And for some reason, word spreading around in school as well. Like I get some random Fullerton student follow me. So I think it's just about putting yourself out there and not being scared of sharing your artwork.
I see.
What about ArtStation? Renso, do you use that as another form of kind of connecting? We've been talking about, for the ethnography where students can make connections, and obviously Instagram's one, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, ArtStation is very good to use as well. I don't use it a lot, not as much as Instagram, but I have made a few friends on there. I met this artist, he's a freelance artist as well in Colorado, and he's really big too. And I just make connections that way. Just send him a message, be like, hey, I'm an art student just trying to get somebody to critique my work. That's how I got Noah Bradley to look at my stuff. I'm sure a lot of you know Noah Bradley. But I keep in contact with him. We send messages left and right. But it's just you'll stick onto somebody's radar and they'll keep an eye out for you. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while they'll talk to you. But it's just about, send a message. Like you don't get anything from it. What are they going to say? They're going to block you or something. Just reach out and see if somebody has the time to kind of look at your work.
Yeah, we were talking about LinkedIn too, which is really not a visual forum, but not a bad place to look up other Cal State grads, so.
Mm-hmm.
So a question?
Yeah.
If you weren't an art instructor, what would you want to do in the art field?
In the art field, I'm not sure I would be in the art field, to be honest. I think I would probably be a contractor or something, to just because of my background. But I don't think I would be in the art in the art field if it wasn't for illustration.
Like, would you see yourself like trying to pursue a career in illustration with a company, like doing commercial stuff, or did you just like have like a set in stone that you just kind of just wanted to be an instructor?
I wanted to go straight into a studio. I think that's a lot of illustrators' kind of dream, is just get into the industry. But you know, from when I realized that I want to be an instructor, that's what I aim for. I just kind of pushed forward and asked the right questions. When I came here, I asked, hey, the first question I asked in my interview is, how do I teach? And they told me, well, you got to go through this process and we got to determine if you're good enough to teach. And I was like, okay. So then I just kept pursuing that. Yeah, it's clear that I tried different things with industrial design. Some things that I didn't talk about were like my printmaking days, my sculpting days where I tossed one of my sculptures into the palm tree because I hated it so much. So I dabbled in a lot of different areas, but I always learned something from each area. Like I tried to take the positives from everything, but yeah, I was pretty set in stone that I wanted to teach.
Do you think you might eventually want to try pursuing going to a studio, or do you think you find yourself comfortable being an instructor for now?
I would like to go to a studio just because I would like to learn more about the pipeline of how things work in order to bring it back. So I would go out to get educated even more and then bring it back to the students. Because for me, it's just about sharing all the knowledge that I have, all the techniques that I've developed, everything that is kind of stuck in my head that I can't share with anybody else. I just want to put that out there. So yeah, I would consider going to a studio, especially if it's my dream studio. But yeah, I think that would be really good. It made me a better instructor, to be honest.
Do you have any more of the pieces?
No, thank you. This is
for
very
the
informative.
MFA, Renzo? Do you have them on this presentation or?
For the MFA?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was mainly these, like these little sketches that I was doing. These were for the show. So these are actually printed on, they're like 18 by 36 canvas prints with like 2 inches off the wall. And they're covered in resin. So these are some of the ones that I have. I've already been asked about one of them, if somebody could have it. And I was like, no, you can't have it. Like
Sell it,
it's,
man. Sell it.
yeah. I'm like, it's a collection, you gotta take all of them.
Okay.
But it was those. These were some posters I was putting in the show. So this one on the right hand side, I actually have printed in my studio. It's like 36 by 20 or something like that. So it's a pretty large print. I actually sold this one right here, and that one's actually going to be included in Affected by Art this year. So it got accepted into the art book. But yeah, most of these are printed and they're all up on my website, and I have like links to like a third-party printer that sells them as well. But yeah, this is my most recent stuff. Kind of took a quick shift somewhere else, and luckily I didn't print these guys out because these were like 40 inches long. They're pretty big. So right when I was about to print them, we got told that we weren't coming back to school.
Yeah, I would love to see these printed. Incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. And like I said, I have like thousands of pages of these little thumbnails that never saw the daylight.
Oh, will you please go back to page 34?
34? Yeah.
Yeah. No, these are interesting concept art. It's like something that belongs in like Destiny or something.
That's always everybody's first reaction. I met a guy at Lightbox and he's like, let me see your stuff. What are you trying to get into? And when I showed it to him, he's like, oh, it's Destiny. I'm like, yeah, it's Destiny.
Right.
That's the game that influenced me. Yeah.
Yeah, was it one of your artworks that was like the bottom of a tower with like a red flag on the top of the entryway? I work at Disneyland, and it's pretty cool. Like that one artwork that you had there reminded me of like the structure you use over in Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, that one. But you also had another one shortly after. It was like an up close of the bottom part.
Let's see. Which one was that?
I think that one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I did last year before everything went down, I went to Disneyland and I took thousands of reference images. So this is actually at Disneyland, and then this is also from Disneyland. So I
Yeah.
took some of their architecture and put it into my work and said, okay, let me reimagine this.
Yeah,
so
we're
a
in
lot
the-
of that is there a Galaxy of Edge, yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. I appreciate that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think Yuliath had a question in the chat.
Oh, she does. Julith said, how did you deal with the depression you mentioned earlier in your presentation?
Yeah, so that was actually something that I didn't really talk about, is getting over the depression, because I didn't know how, I don't know, like I work here, so I don't really like to talk about my background or my faith, especially not in school. But my faith was something that really, really pushed me out of that.
Oh, I see.
And as you said, surrounding yourself by people who support you and,
Yeah,
getting
exactly. Yeah, lots of good friends.
Oh,
I made
another
a lot
major
of good
question
friends
here.
afterwards. Yeah.
Giovanni's asked, with everything you went through at school with your various instructors, how do you approach your students in terms of their skills, regardless if they have experience or not? I think I have had experience with instructors making me feel insecure about my artwork.
Yeah, so something that I actually just noticed this week is because we had critiques all this week and last week. If my students are, some of us take a longer time to learn Photoshop and learn digital. So what I do is I tell them to turn in anything they have. It doesn't matter if it's finished. And as long as they turn it in for critique and get feedback, they're allowed to turn it in at the end of the semester as an improved version. So I let them kind of work with their skills and develop over time, and then come back and learn and pick up your old artwork and improve it. So that's how I try to keep them from feeling, embarrassed from showing their work, or they feel like they're not good enough. Like in my class, everybody's good enough. I was already there. I want you guys to know that it's a safe space. I never talk badly about anybody's work. I always try to find, how can I help you improve it? So it's all about having a safe space. And you could hear, like last semester with my seniors, it was just like everybody became friends after the class, and they were all like, can you leave the Discord up so we could talk during vacation? And I'm like, yeah, I'll leave the Discord up, you guys can hang out. So it's just about forming some sense of community and just, respecting each other.
Oh, that's really cool, man. And then Brandon also has another question. Is that you mentioned earlier when you said a lot of your art pieces were 30 minutes. He asked, do you have any advice on speed with your art? Just referring to your quick demos and stuff.
Honestly, for speed, it's hard because I think it's just time that brings that. I took, for example, like when I was at Art Center doing these little car sketches, I would spend an eternity trying to draw this. And it was just like, this is not working. Like you could see like scribbles in the back of this where I kind of like wrote notes to myself. But it just comes with time and looking at other people's work and learning from it. So if you just look at somebody's work and say, wow, that's awesome, and scroll the page, you're not taking anything from it. Really look at it and try to identify, what are they doing in the piece? What tools are they using? Are they using the rule of thirds? Are they using a golden ratio? What are you doing to create that artwork? So it's a lot of studying. For my students that are learning narrative illustration right now, I have them do a lot of speed paintings in order to show them, hey, you need to learn the black and white sketch before you move to color, before you do all this. So it's just time. Like once you start spending more time with the software and studying other people's work, you just get quicker.
I see. And another question by Ziba, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, was what is your recommendation for Photoshop class in CSUF since you teach one here?
Recommended classes?
Yes, especially for Photoshop.
For Photoshop, definitely 363B. That's where you learn Illustrator and Photoshop at the same time. But I would recommend taking 363A2, especially with Nicole Yang. She's a really good instructor and she really pushes students a lot. Even though that's traditional, everything she's teaching you in there is going to translate over to digital. So 363B is digital. I think perspective drawing is digital as well. So that's really good to learn, artwork and especially the perspective. Narrative illustration, the special study classes that you can get into them. Those are all really helpful.
Okay, thank you. And then that's very helpful. Christine also asks, what are some skills / advices that you recommend artists to take in consideration when creating art?
What was that? Skills or what was it?
Skills / advices that you recommend artists to take in consideration when creating their art.
I would say don't try to get fixated to one kind of art medium. Because if you just stick to digital, you don't learn a lot of stuff from other places. So like I said, I took printmaking, I took sculpture, I took so many different classes, acrylic, oil. I try to put my hand into everything to learn everybody's techniques and then apply it to my artwork. So the more open you are to, taking analog photography, I took analog photography, and that's where I really learned about composition because you only have 20 shots and you have to make sure everything's correct before you take that shot. And in that class, especially, I learned compose your shots before you even push that button. So just dabbling in different art mediums, it really helped me.
I see.
And you did that from RCC on, right? You kept mixing it up, right? And you knew you wanted to do digital, but you kept taking different classes.
Yeah, when I was at San Bernardino's, when I really started exploring and taking, the art histories, especially like art history, just to see what other people were doing before. So like for me, especially like in this piece, I don't think it's on here, but I have a piece where I was influenced by like Caravaggio and like learning how he linked his blacks in his chiaroscuro lightings. That's where I was like, oh, I want to try that. So everything that I kind of took, I try to dabble in everything because I was like, something's gonna come out of this. Photography was huge for me. I love photography. I thought about just taking photography all the time. I loved analog, like just the process of analog. But yeah, explore a lot.
I see. Thank you.
And a lot of you might be thinking, we don't have time to explore. We got to graduate. But there's classes outside of school. There's classes with other people that you can take, or just take one at a community college. It doesn't hurt to go back to community college.
Fair point.
What about some of those night programs? Remember when Patrick came to class and they were talking about a lot of those, I don't remember the names of them, but they were, more workshops with professionals. Do you remember any of those, Renzo? I mean, do you think that's the thing that students maybe would do after they graduate?
Yeah. So some of them are brainstorm and what's the other one? Trying to remember, schoolism.
Sponsored Design Academy, CGMA.
Yeah, CGMA as well. Those are really big and those are awesome. I wish I had time to take a course like that. But yeah, I have a friend who just graduated last semester from Fullerton, and he went straight to brainstorm and just like, hey, I got to keep learning. And taking those classes with working professionals, and learning their pipeline and their process, all the knowledge they have over the years is gonna push you even more.
So those are like 6 classes or a package for a month, or is it, how long do they usually run?
The ones that I've seen were at Schoolism. I think you pay like, I think it's like $900 for a few months, and it's like they have really distinguished artists like Craig Mullins. You guys know who Craig Mullins is? He has a course over there.
Professor, can I interrupt? I've taken a few classes at Brainstorm. Brainstorm Burbank, I met James Paycart. In case of those interested, he worked in, he's the founder of Brainstorm. He worked in Far Cry, he worked in the Uncharted series, really nice guy.
Yeah.
And I actually got a few scholarships from him. And then I got a scholarship at Rancho Cucamonga Brainstorm with Christian Nacorda, who worked on the BioShock series. So they teach a lot of like analytical drawing, figure drawing, form language, a lot of the foundational stuff, but the classes are intense, just like Renso said, because it's an art center environment. And then CGMA is also pretty much intense. And then the cool thing about those, James Paycart told me that a lot of times you have studios that are industry, and they'll just come in, walk randomly. And then if they see your artwork and they like it, they'll just hire you on the spot. And in regards to what you recommended for Fullerton College, I'm currently taking 24 units total. They have a 3D program over there for toy making with Frank Guthrie, who worked in Dora the Explorer. He worked on the Winter Soldier. He worked in Marvel. And then they have a Philip Dimitriadis. And then they have a lot of other people. And I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize. But what I'm trying
you're
to
good.
get,
You're good.
what I'm trying to get at with this is that you always got to stay constantly busy, like Renso said. You gotta, that's the only way to grow. And Frank Guthrie is really cool. Introduction to ZBrush, introduction to Maya, intermediate Maya, and then Michael Sheehan. So definitely, ladies and gentlemen, go to Fullerton Community College. There's people there who are serious. Also, you can go to Santa Monica Community College, like Renso recommended, because a lot of those core programs that they have there are 3D design, and a lot of you guys want to be animators and illustrators, and a lot of that artwork is kind of like what Renso said. Everything's becoming digital if you want to get an entertainment art. And anyway, that's all I'm gonna say.
No, that's great.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much. Everything's being taught through Zoom though now, right? These Brainstorm, CGMA, they're not live, right?
No.
They're actually like that. But the good thing about COVID, I mean, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to hurt anybody, you can actually have these lessons recorded. So I actually know how to print toys. So I watch the recordings over and over and over and over and over. And I have the 3D printers here, as a matter of fact. Right
Very
there.
cool. Yeah.
And with the washers and everything. And Frank teaches that class with Mesh Mixer and Cura software, how to cut the toys, how to piece them together, how to put metal in them. And so what you guys said, ladies and gentlemen, is Professor Roche and Professor Gomez. It goes down to, being busy. And then another thing that I recommend is New Masters Academy. It's $50.
Right.
However, if you have maybe Professor Roche can do the privilege or Renso. If you have proof that you're a student, you get 50% off. I've been with New Masters Academy for over a year, and they have good instructors like Glenn Vilpool, Steve Houston, and a lot of other people that that can help you work on your figure and so on. So that's another good pathway to go if those of you who want to have some time.
Oh, and also, yeah. Sorry, you can go first.
I was just going to say, were those live, Chris, originally, and now they're all online through Zoom and digital and recorded lectures?
So Brainstorm, it is. I don't know if they have if they've changed their regulations in recording, but they normally did.
Yeah.
And in regards to New Masters Academy, they're all pre-recorded lessons, and they teach different levels of perspective, and they're wonderful. They'll teach you how to do a plane. And the cool thing about it is the majority of the alumni who are at New Masters Academy have that background from Art Center and people who work at Blizzard and Disney. So you have Bill Perkins, for example, who teaches illustration and the principles and foundation of drawing. And then you have Steve Houston, who teaches the philosophy of art. So all of those little pieces help at Cal State Fullerton, because you kind of get ahead of the curve in a way. You bring all that knowledge from outside, like Renzo said, and then you bring that here, and it just enriches your artwork. And then you just get new knowledge from here, new knowledge from you, from anyone, and from the students, and then it just helps produce more. But New Masters Academy, they started doing something every Friday. As a matter of fact, tomorrow they're gonna have a live figure drawing online, and you can check it at Facebook, New Masters Academy. And normally Glenn Vilpu does it. Sometimes Joshua Jacobo does it. Possibly Ilya Mirochnik, who's real popular for doing figure drawing. He's Russian. He went to the Raputin Academy in Russia, and he's really good for figure drawing. He teaches in Florida. So that's another way to go. So check New Masters Academy. They have a Discord chat on there as well. And it's live drawings, I think Tuesday and Fridays, and it's live, and it's for free.
Awesome. Thank you. That's so helpful. And it's all about, expanding the community and the influences.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
On that.
And then for those of you who want to know one more thing, Fullerton College, where Mike Sheehan at, where Frank Guthrie's at, they just accepted, the Board of Education just gave the green light for them to actually teach certificated, kind of like the associate's degrees I have back here.
Yeah.
To have actual degrees on 3D printing, on Maya, and other ones, but it's on the process of getting finalized. So don't, it's not in stone yet. Yeah. My opinion is go on the website, reach out to them, because I don't want to give you mistaken information. I'm not, an instructor there, and I don't want to give you mistaken information, but the professors mentioned that they're on the process of getting actual certificates. And 3D printing is fantastic because there's people who actually use Maya and ZBrush to do teeth. You print out teeth, dentures with resin, but resin done in soy, not, regular harmful toxin resins. And they have a big industry. There's people who didn't even come to a Cal State system, and they're already in the industry, because Frank, for example, he worked in Dora the Explorer, he worked in SpongeBob, he worked in a lot of other work, and he's really, really down to earth. But you gotta put in the work. You can't, be lazy. You can't be leaving things for later. You just gotta work hard, like Renzo and the other instructors.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, Kian.
On that, going back to what you said on keeping yourself busy and keeping it going. Simon asks, what do you say to someone that wants to give up when they see no improvement? I want to hear from Chris and Renzo on this topic, because it seems like they've been speaking on it.
You want to hear from me? I'm a student.
yeah, but you're speaking on, keeping yourself busy and get it and keep on going, right? But
okay,
it seems
so
like
check this out. I'm not here to brag, but Sony offered me a job already, and I didn't want to take it. Why? Because I want to do what Renzo did, and I want to do what my mentor, Mr. Jones, did. Aaron Jones, I love that guy. I met him at Riverside City College as well. Beautiful guy with the most humble humanity. And I got that internship, but I don't want it because I want to get my education. So this is my opinion. I work in a school district. I work at Alvord Unified School District. I work as an interpreter. I speak 3 languages. I've been doing it since I was 20. I was hired there, and I couldn't come to school right away because of circumstances in life. So now I finally came to school, thank God. So based on my age, based on my experience, based on my failures and my victories, however you want to mention it, don't let people discourage you. You guys are young. A lot of you are 19, 20s. You got a life ahead of you. And I'm going to say what Frank Guthrie said. Age is not a big thing. Experience is what studios want. You know, maturity, passion, love, compassion, humility, that mentality of growth. If you're gonna be a snob and mean and cruel, oh, and I did the best drawing and I did the best this, they're not gonna like you. They're not gonna want to hire you. And I got that from the people, the top dogs. Rafael Grissetti, the director at Sony from God of War. I text the guy. Don't be mean. Don't be a jerk. Be humble. Have the mentality to grow. Don't think you're better than everybody else first. Second, educate yourself. Don't say, oh, I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I'm going to be 30 because I'm 34. That's my current age right now. Oh, I'm going to be, no. Have the mentality of grow. Learn your foundations. Have a solid foundation. Be hungry. Don't be lazy. Don't say, I'm going to leave a project for tomorrow. Don't do that. Work, work, work. Put in the work. Push, 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 push. And then take criticism as constructive as possible. My artwork got destroyed at Brainstorm. When I got my critique by one of the God of War employees, he worked in God of War, he told me, how dare you bring these, you know, do you think they're gonna hire you at Sony? Like, this is a disgrace, like, how dare you? And I got so discouraged, and my wife was like, don't let that discourage you. And I wanted literally to cry. my pride is all broken all over the floor. So then picking up the pieces, I'm gonna solder them. And it's like, I went through a depression too. I did. Because you see all these guys, these shot callers and artwork. I was like, oh my gosh, their artwork's amazing. It's like my little artwork's like nothing, like a little ant. So it's like, you can't have that mentality where, you know, you're eternal and, oh my gosh, and I know it all and look at my power. No, just don't say anything. Be nice, be kind, laugh at your failures and one day at a time. And in regards to Brainstorm, this would be my recommendation because I've already went to Brainstorm. Get New Masters Academy, okay? Pay the $25 a month, tell them that you're a student, and then and get on New Masters Academy every day if you can. Even when you're not on the semester, when you're on break. There is no such thing as break for us artists. There's momentarily breaks, but art should be an everyday thing. Steve Houston said that, Glenn Vilppu said that. Bill Perkins say those things. So work very hard, don't be lazy, don't procrastinate. Take classes at the community colleges. You make connections, network, because that's all about who you know. It's about who's gonna get you there. It's about how many people you know, who's gonna motivate you. And once you reach the peak, once you're at the top or once you're in the industry, don't be mean. Don't forget where you come from. So those are my recommendations as a professional, you know, that I recommend that as somebody who works in a school district, maybe not Blizzard or Sony yet, but, you know, somebody who's actually an instructor at a school, I would say that those would be my recommendations as an instructor. Don't be a snob, be kind, or be open to criticism, and just, you know, work on your personality every day and hit your art. And Brainstorm and all of those classes, once you have a solid foundation about vanishing point, you know, your perspective, your cone of vision, all of those things, once you know those things, then go to Brainstorm because they're going to tell you you're not ready for this. They told me that. I went in there thinking I knew how to use what the 45, what the VP was. I didn't even know those things. They told me, do you know what a VP is? I'm like, what? It's a vanishing point. So it's like it broke my pride even more down because I didn't know perspective, and you gotta know perspective. So my recommendation is principles, hit those hard. It's a strong foundation. Color theory, composition, what's a tone, what's a tint, what's desaturation, what's intensity. Work on your vocabulary, build, and then, you know, then we can talk about moving to the next level. But don't ask me, Chris. You can ask Renso or Professor Roche. But since you guys wanted to bring me up, you guys wanted to say my name, and Chris, what do you recommend? I'm just giving you a little bit of what I don't know, what I think I know, what's worked for me. So anyways, that's all I'm gonna say. I'll let the professionals, Professor Roche, I'm gonna let you.
I just love art. I don't know shit about how to do any of this stuff, right? I just know what I like, but awesome, Christopher. That's so inspiring, and thank you. Yeah, I
Thank
love
you.
this class. We're talking more as a group than, yeah, it's amazing.
You know, please, Lorenzo, please, add on to, if you have anything to add on to what Chris already covered so much.
Yeah, no, the only thing I could say is what I was told, and that's if you're thinking about giving up, and you give up, you already hit your limit. You've already lost. You've already reached your peak when you give up. So if you feel like you've given up and you can't make it anymore, you can't have that mentality. You have to always keep pushing forward. It's similar to like when I used to play sports. It was like in high school, I was like, man, I didn't make it on varsity this year, and I was like, I'm gonna give up. And my dad's like, why don't you just go play with adults? So you always have to find a way to keep getting better and come back stronger. Personally, for me, taking a break isn't a bad thing because I come back with more motivation. So sometimes I'll take like a month off from drawing and just think about drawing. I'm like, man, I really want to do this or I really want to do that. And when I come back, I have all these ideas in my head that I'm like ready to put on paper. So I don't work myself to the bone anymore. I already went through that. I already kind of struggled and cried a little bit on the way there. But taking a break, it refreshes you and it just fills you up with more ideas, more concepts.
Yeah, I totally concur because I find like I applied for a sabbatical to write an article on an artist I really find amazing, and I didn't get it. And the chair was like, yeah, only 1 in 10 visual arts faculty get sabbatical. And I had a day where I was like really sad. I like, oh, I've lost my writing chops. I can't get this sabbatical from my own school. And then I couple people just were like, hey, you can't give up, you got to do your own writing too. And so yeah, I made an appointment to go talk to this artist in LA and realized that maybe I had to shift gears a little. I couldn't write a really long article during the semester, but I could write something short. And so you guys are so kind, and I feel like I'm just I have the best job ever because I have an opportunity to bring people together and to create a forum for people to learn from each other. And it's been really inspiring, Renso, to talk to you some more because yeah, I kind of was blown away when you did that Macintosh Art Nouveau style Muka logo, and then I started following you on Instagram, and I knew you were a really strong student, and I just was really impressed by what I learned looking at your art, and now your story tonight. Like you've just kept pursuing things and being hit by the storm from time to time, but creating that community around you. And I think the lessons that you shared are really important, the human lessons, because our art is a lot about how we believe in ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Super wonderful evening. Kian, anybody else in the chat? We have, I always lose track of time in this class because
It seems like Chris posted the link for New Masters Academy.
Sweet.
Yeah, so just double check there. If I'm not mistaken, the wife of Joshua Jacobo, who founded New Masters Academy, her name is Nicole. So you can reach out to her and just let them know, oh, I'm a student here, or if the professors want to reach out to them and say, look, I'm a professor at Cal State Fullerton. I want to see with COVID and my students, I want to see what promotional packages you have. They teach perspective. They teach everything. Analytical figure drawing, and then they have all these other people. And they even have packages too to meet with those instructors one-on-one. So if you want to get feedback from like Disney people in the industry, etc., but they're just as expensive as Brainstorm, $900. They have a $10,000 program at Brainstorm with Peter Hahn, who's worked in in Star Wars and stuff, and people like that. So great connections to have if you want to have them, but that's really up to you guys if you want to spend that kind of money.
I see. And please, Renzo, please plug your Instagram. Chloe will love to know.
What was that?
Will you plug your Instagram for everyone to
Oh,
see? That's what Chloe asked.
Instagram. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, I posted that under this week's class too. So, and it's
Yeah,
got a
let's put it
link in
on
your
here, too.
bio to your website too, I think.
So that's my username on Instagram.
I see. No, thank you.
Any other questions?
It seems like we do not have any, but I shall wait a little bit for everyone to, just in case.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to have a group show of Renzo and Jesse and Hunter and Nicole. All, wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Jennifer's a big fan of what you have all been doing. So who knows? It might be a while before we get a new gallery space that's coming in like 3 years, but really appreciate your being here tonight with us, Renzo. And thank you everyone for such another wonderful class. And yeah, I think Zoom is like, we're creating even more of a community than when it's in the classroom. It's awesome. It's an easier venue to kind of have all this, all these voices. Yeah.
Yeah, Renzo.
Thanks to all of you for hanging out.
Yeah, Renzo, if I can say, I just wanted to say I took this class last year, and it's really nice to hear a speaker. Normally we have speakers that just talk about their journey in the professional art industry. And very rarely do we get people that really talk about their backstory and their upbringing and their inspiration. So it was really inspiring to hear about how you grew up and your journey, your actual personal journey through your home life and what inspired you and to where you are now. So I would like to thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that.
No, thank you so much, Christopher. You guys brought up a lot of good points, and no, your work's amazing, and both what you guys said are very inspirational to us.
Yeah. Kian, amazing emceeing tonight. I'm gonna stop calling it a co-host and just call it like the DJ MC role, because it really makes it fun and adds to it. And I can even go on the chat now.
No, it's lovely. Yeah, everyone just chimes in, honestly.
Yeah, it's sweet. All right, so next week, you guys, old friend and creative photo, MFA D Hill is going to be presenting. He's always got something up his sleeve, so I don't know if he's going to do a performance for us on Zoom, but look forward to it. And I posted his website, and he's also got a video webinar this Sunday. I'll post that. So yeah, we'll have another fun week, and just kick back, get some vitamin D in the sunshine this weekend. It should be beautiful. So yeah, the recording, Samantha, sure. Yeah. Anytime anyone needs a recording, also just hit me up on email and I'll send it to you. So.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording for this class right now too. Yes.